Hello and welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the show, The Future of Web. So this is a show, or a podcast, how whatever you may call it, about Web3 technologies. See, the intention of this is to educate uh, and increase the wider understanding and adoption of this technology. So here we discuss the current status of Web3 and how different personnel, so be it a founder, investor, designer, developer, a marketeer, or even a community manager, and several other people are impacting this space through their product of or service. So good morning and good afternoon, good evening, depending upon which part of the world you're joining in from. My name is Alek, and I'm the founder of a company called Animo Solution. We are a Web3 design and a development agency. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. Go, you can check out our website. And yeah, so let's move on. So today our guest, is someone who's been running multiple businesses, in a different industry. Not in technology. He's a tech guy, but he was running businesses not in technology. But now, decided to get into Web3, and through his product, he wants to revolutionize. I hope I said that correctly. Revol- Revolutionize, right? Yeah. How we think of fashion, and he's building an awesome product. We're going to talk about it, obviously in the show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Aditya Mani. Hello, Aditya. Welcome.
Hi, Alec. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Like it's a chilly, starting to get winters here in Delhi, so it's a chilly winter morning. So thank you again so much for coming in.
No
Nice.
problem. So because I'm South Indian, I feel extra cold in Delhi. So that's why I have the jacket on, even though it's November.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah. So no, I've also started to feel, so I've got a little half jacket on a little bit. It's still, getting to enjoy the good weather and good time to be in Delhi. So if anybody who is planning to travel to Delhi, this is the right time.
Yeah.
Cool. So Aditya, so this is the question that I usually ask, all my guests, which is like, which is, pretty pertinent to what they're doing. So it's like, what is it that gets you up in the morning every day?
Yeah. It's a great question, Alec, and it's important to have your priorities right uh, when you're
Yeah.
doing this. So something that I learned, I think a couple of years back when I was, I was building software solutions for healthcare. I thought I was building the
Mm-hmm.
best solutions out there, and I was not getting any usage. And then I went to
Mm-hmm.
a course on design thinking, and I thought design thinking is all about integrating design, integrating the way, multiple, disciplines come together to design something. Then I realized the most important thing I'm missing in design thinking is empathy. So to build that empathy muscle requires you to completely rethink the way things are. So in the morning, whenever I wake up, I always think about my end user. One saying, why is my end user going to even bother opening this app or looking at this app? How is it going to change his day? And that's
Mm-hmm.
something I kind of forced myself into thinking, and now it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
become a part of routine. And it's so important to do that because there are so many of us who want to
Yeah.
revolutionize the world, who want to change the world, but unless you're thinking about how it's going to get used, how is it going to bring in value to the other person, it's
Yeah.
often not. It could either be too complex or too simple or too distanced from the vision of the user, and that's so important to think about every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Oh yeah,
basically
I
what
agree.
morning. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I think that's a great thought, to start this, show with. Because what happens is, like I've built products, through an organization, and, I've been building products for a long time. And obviously, met a lot of people who are building, different products. What I've noticed, like sometimes we get too engrossed with our idea. We're too passionate, and, we're too obsessed with it, that, this is going to change the way world, it works and stuff like that. But and sometimes it's not true, when you go and actually present a product in front of your, supposed end customers. it just doesn't work. It just doesn't resonate with them.
Yeah,
So I think
it's
that's a
totally
good
that.
way,
It's totally
like
that. We've seen that.
empathizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally
No,
that.
it's cool.
You
Cool.
kind of you realize that you're building something. You're building it in the lab. You're passionate about it. You've excited the team about it, and you
Hmm.
take it there. And it's and what is more disappointing than not hitting sales, or what is more disappointing than not getting the kind of response that you get from the market, is when people just don't use your
Hmm.
product. You feel you've got
Yeah.
5-star rating, and you'd rather get 3 stars on the app store, but what if you don't get any reviews on the app store? That is
Yeah.
disappointing. So that
Yeah.
is where you need to build that muscle to keep saying, what is it that he wants or she wants, put it out
Mm.
there, get some feedback, listen to that feedback, value that feedback. So I think that's something that
Mm.
all of us, how much ever we're doing it, we need to do it more.
Oh, absolutely. And there's every day there's new people coming into the picture, building products, and that the end users are changing. Every now and then. So we had Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and and the Boomers. I mean, they're called. So you have imagine for a product to have to cater to a lot of them. So it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah,
Interesting, how what actually wakes you up every morning. It's very inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
you're welcome.
So
And I also try to practice a little bit of gratitude, because
yeah,
I feel, as an entrepreneur, a lot of people will tell you fake it till you make it. And I don't think that's the right strategy, because you're listening to yourself, you're listening to your thoughts. So if you're somewhere
yeah,
telling yourself, I need to fake it till I make it, you are going to feel that hollowness on, at some point in time, when you have, say, a lot of meetings planned and then it gets cancelled, you suddenly feel that emptiness syndrome. But whereas if you practice gratitude and you build that muscle of practicing gratitude, you kind of become an optimization engine, or someone who brings in optimism.
yeah,
That's what
yeah, yeah,
that's what your team is looking for, that's what your customers are looking for, because they want not just the vision, they don't just want to see that where you're going, they also
yeah,
want to know how you bring in that passion, how you bring in that optimism. And I have seen, on days when I am not like 110% of myself, my team is not giving 110% of themselves, because they don't sense that sense of optimism coming out through the Zoom call, or coming out through the phone call. And sometimes it's very important to give that in a genuine, authentic way, and not do the fake it as you make it. You can pull off the fake it as you make it. We all know the entertainment industry does it so well,
yeah,
the finance industry, the Wall Street guys do it so well. But it catches up with them. They always talk about burnout, or they talk about that syndrome of now we are not in, you always see suddenly actors are at a high, and then suddenly they go into a shell, because
yeah,
it catches up with them. But whereas if you build true optimism coming out from inside, you have that sense of gratitude, you are able to pick out, you're able to typically pull out optimism from the air, then that is where you start feeling that that's what drives you when you're going through a tough moment, and you say, hey, I'll be over this. It is that,
yeah.
it's that sense of gratitude and optimism which actually gets you there more than the faking.
Oh, absolutely. I totally resonate with that because every morning, if for at least say about 30 seconds to about 2 minutes, I try and practice visualization, gratitude, and couple of things. And I have my goals written on a wall, on a board rather. So I try and just go through them and imbibe them. So what happens is during the day, like you mentioned, the ups and downs that we go through as entrepreneurs, they're bound to bog our down, and sometimes it's too high, sometimes it's too low. But this is what keeps you grounded. That's what I felt. So I totally resonate, and it's a good advice for the listening entrepreneurs who are going through a burnout or who are starting up now. I mean, that's a very very good advice to base your day on and your life. So thank you once again. Cool. So that's so that's a good hint of how you think. That gives a good little insight into that. So let's share. Let get to know a little more. Can you just share a little secret? Like something which you've not really shared with anybody else till now, or
Yeah,
which you can easily do that.
this is going to be tough and embarrassing, because sometimes you keep secrets,
Yeah.
uh, because you're a little mildly ashamed to share them. So back in high school, this was back
Yeah.
in, if I'm not wrong, 88, 89. Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, a little later, 91, 92.
Yeah.
I would think
Yeah.
1991. And we used to have AIR FM, and we used to have English part of the AIR FM, which was, I forgot what it's called. And you had, some of the biggest people today in
Uh-huh.
entertainment actually started their career back then as radio jockeys.
Yeah.
And I hacked into the answering machine of AIR. And not just that,
Okay.
so the way it would work is they, typically back then they would play requests by getting letters, and then they would read out and say,
Yeah.
so and so from Jaipur has asked for this, so and so from Northeast has asked for this song, and we're going to play these recorded English songs that they had the rights to. And I would then they moved on to something. Times FM. Now I remember what it's called. So if I get a lawsuit from Times, it's because I mentioned the word Times FM. So so Times FM came out with this concept called, we're going to have English programming on radio, but with English songs, but we're going to have an English radio jockey, and we're going to take the messages on an answering machine. So they would actually play out your message. So it was your, 50 seconds of fame, because you'd hear your voice. So, you'd actually call up people and say, hey, hear my voice. So what me and a friend would do is we would change the incoming message. So, they would say,
Okay.
hey, please record your voice, whatever. And we'd say things like, all sorts of things, we'd change it. So people would call in with all these strange messages, and they had no idea what's going on because they would never listen to their incoming message. So, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, we'll say, now this week you have to request for Bhojpuri songs or something like that. And they had no idea what was going on. And, sometimes we'd say all funny things on it. So, had no idea. This is before caller ID was out. They had
Yeah.
no idea what was going on. And then finally, one day I called, and then they said that Delhi police is monitoring this call. Whether it was a threat or not, I was a kid in school, so I was like, shit, I'm backing off. Sorry for the profanity, but I was like, I'm backing off. I just got super scared as a kid, and I kept that secret. Me and my friend, we kept the secret close to our heart till it became a party trick that we started to mention to people.
Yeah.
This is what we did when we were in school. So it was our moment of joy and our moment of a little bit of mischievousness. Everyone's done
Yeah.
something pretty mischievous in school, and I was a shy
Yeah.
kid, so my way of reaching out and doing my mischief was actually messing with the all India radio.
And that was not a small thing to do,
Yeah, so
but it's
I
good,
affected many lives. Even though I was a shy kid, I affected many lives.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree. Like I was a shy kid as well. I had to really work out, on this habit of mine to be, get out of that shell, because I realized, so early on in life that I mean, there's nothing wrong in being introverts. I'm still am, like I'm very, in a unknown, in a party of unknown people, I would still be, quietly sitting in a corner, or, just talking to the ones that I really know. But yeah, it's interesting, how introverts express themselves.
Yeah,
I
very
will tell you
interesting.
my story offline. It's quite interesting. Today is all about you. No, it's
Yeah.
interesting. So now, so let's get on with it. And I know, after discussing with you multiple times earlier, what you used to do. So you were running multiple, healthcare companies, like as part of your, family business with your father, and you yourself, I think, had a healthcare business, right? Uh, so, but why did you decide to move to Web3? Like, healthcare was totally different. It requires a totally different kind of a mindset. But why Web3?
Okay, so I didn't want to jump into Web3. So that's
Mm.
that's the good reason to be in Web3, because you didn't want to just join the hype or join it. So I was, in addition to running hospitals, which I found a little. So the hospital business is a tough business to be in, because if you're not from the medical line,
Uh-huh.
it can seem very commercial, because you're dealing with the whole aspect purely as a, how you look at a business or a factory or a shop.
Uh-huh.
And it was lives, and that whole empathy angle gets to you. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing my healthcare software company, so
Mm-hmm.
we had a very successful healthcare software company. We had
Uh-huh.
blood bank software, and we had some of the best blood banks in Asia working on our software.
Uh-huh.
uh, what got to me what I thought got to me was that we didn't have really a B2C play. So we were typically
Okay.
giving demos. We were going and talking to blood bank technicians, blood bank, the guys in the blood bank who are sitting and using the software, who are
Mm-hmm.
either the technical staff or the junior staff. And I would always see my friends, doing B2C kind of events. So they'd be in Goa doing an ad fest, or they'd be in
Mm-hmm.
so I always felt I'm missing out on the consumer side of things. I'm doing something and I'm doing good. So we were doing about 1 million blood donations a year running through our system. We were able to tell blood donors to come back, because many times, you land up giving blood because of a family member and you're a replacement
Yeah.
donor. We can convert you into becoming a voluntary by just telling you when you're next eligible. So it was a
Yeah.
lot of
Okay.
good stuff that we did, a lot of good impact, and a lot of good,
Mm-hmm.
amazing stuff we did. But
Mm-hmm.
you feel that void, because you feel that you're not consumer driven. You're B2B. You're empowering businesses to do what you're doing, but you are not facing the consumer. So that's
Yeah.
something that kept bugging me the last few years of
Okay.
the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw this technology. I was working with someone who was wanting to bring uh, you know 3D volumetric capture, which is basically a celebrity goes into a 3D volumetric studio and they're captured, and they're typically
From
captured
all
for
angles.
from all angles. So this is
Yeah.
very expensive, $1 million studios, and
Yeah.
you capture this asset and then you insert it into a game, or you can insert it into a Marvel movie or whatever. So once you
Yeah.
have the complete 3D capture of the person, you can you can set the virtual camera angle from anywhere, but you will get
Yeah.
a perfect capture of this person. And I
Yeah.
actually saw a few celebrities in my home, so I spawned this AR implementation of a volumetric capture, and I said, wow. And then I just happened to walk towards it and I saw details of the jacket. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that uh, entertainment is going to pivot towards, entertainment and the whole concept of edutainment. So I
Yeah.
thought that even if you can't have news, the entire news being read out by holding your phone, you can probably see the highlights. So you can probably see snippets of the highlights, or what we call the the headlines,
Yeah.
where a big newsreader is walking on your dining table and he's telling you the news, while you're eating food. So that's
Yeah.
my vision of how I saw this happen. And I thought that this is the way,
Mm-hmm.
things are going to get consumed in the future, in terms of consuming entertainment and consuming
Mm-hmm.
content. And then when COVID hit, it became a very, very, became more apparent. So people wanted to consume content, more in this way. OTT was going up. People were seeing things more on their
Oh
phone
yeah.
because they were at home. And then
Yeah.
that whole hybrid culture of work and home, work from home, work with home, all of that was happening. So
Yeah.
we were not able to di- divide where
Differentiate.
work starts and where differentiate between work,
Yeah.
where work starts and where it's personal stuff. So people were more on their personal devices, home and stuff, like on phones and stuff like that. So then I realized that can there be a tech out there where you can create a digital human of yourself just with a phone? And back in
Mm-hmm.
2020, when I started playing with this idea, it seemed completely bizarre, because here you have a $1 million studio where you're creating
Yeah.
a human, digital human, and here I'm talking about creating it with a normal phone. So it was a complete rethinking of the whole process. And
Mm-hmm.
then of course we went through multiple pivots. We thought that it was fitness which is going to be the game changer, so we came up with the fitness solution. And then from there on, that whole, the fitness guys, the fitness uh, athletic companies that are also into fashion, they said that fashion is your real use case. So that's how I
Yeah.
really and Web3 just turned out to be, there are certain aspects of having wearables on your avatar, having your avatar present, where you can have it on your wallet and have it on unlocked out of the virtual world. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how Web3 came as a natural evolution, rather than
Mm-hmm.
Web3 being a wave that I wanted to hold on to. So basically,
Yeah.
we are an AR/VR company, and we are
Mm-hmm.
basically, I would say, yeah, basically a 3D company. And because Web3 gives so much to the power of the consumer, in terms of being able to save clothing to their own digital wallet, save their
Mm-hmm.
avatars as a wallet, we are now picking up useful parts of Web3 and not doing everything Web3, where I'm always thinking about that end consumer in mind, where I don't want to make it so tough for the person to use that they find they put it away, and they I am only touching like 0.01% of the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, So if we step back a little bit, what I understand, in a sentence is you were not really enjoying healthcare, and you found this use case, a little more appealing. That's the way I see it. Why I say that is because, I mean, in healthcare, Web3 and blockchain development has a huge, huge scope. Like implementing, or you already had that, the backend system totally running fine, which was easier from a tech perspective to transit to a Web3 and a blockchain. Like, if you're running hospitals, then like, for newborn babies, you can give their birth certificates on blockchain, which becomes immutable, so people can't really fake it later on, and several other things. So I mean, that distinction is something that I really fascinates me. Like, I myself wants to do multiple things, so that's why I want to like understand a little more from your head, like what were you thinking, and what was the reaction of your like family, or maybe friend circle or peers.
So, family has always been super, super supportive, and
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful and thankful to that.
Yeah.
Friends, so when you're talking to friends, they see technology, so they just see you as a tech guy. They just see you as, so I don't know how much you really speak about work with friends. So
Yeah.
so they always see you as geeky, techie. You're somewhere there. So for
Yeah.
them, nothing has changed much. You're still
Yeah.
not able to explain very clearly what you do. That means you're a tech guy. So,
Yeah.
so as
Interesting.
far as my
Interesting.
as far as my friends circle is concerned, my job profile was as obscure as what it was earlier, and it's still as obscure now.
Okay.
From a personal calling, so you
Yeah.
do things because you do things, and you don't.
Yeah.
So when you do things to fit things in, they become forced, and when you fit things in to become forced, they become a drag. So you go and tell your team, "Acha, I'm sorry, I break into Hindi at times," but you go and tell
No,
your
no,
team,
that's fine.
uh, we are now going to be bringing in, like we brought in fingerprint technology, so we fingerprint our donors. Now we brought in, iris scan. Now we are bringing in blockchain. They're going to be like, yeah, boss has got us another big project to do, and then he's going to drive us, and he's going to tell us that why has it not been integrated in one day. So it's always going to be a force fit. But the
Yeah.
move
Okay.
from B to B2C was from inside. It was like, I'm not gaining something which I felt I'm missing out on. Or maybe you just wanted that completeness in vision. You just wanted,
Hmm.
I've done B2B, now I want to do B2C. So it truly came in from inside. And COVID kind of was an equalizer that way, where it let everyone was locked in, everyone had access to everyone else. So you
Hmm.
typically, people who were switching from in-person meetings to Zoom really had that handicap of saying, they had in the back of their mind thinking that, hey, I need to learn Zoom. So they were feeling a little reserved, and they had their old rules of how they would do sales. So
Yeah.
it was guys like us who caught up and said, okay, fine, we've been doing this in IT for a long time, let's just go there. So I was able to kind of enter a lot of these networks very, very naturally, because we were using
Hmm.
this tech, and we were using these tools within our teams to be in touch with them. So it kind of gave me an equalizer effect. And then also what happened is, because COVID was a complete disruptor. It gave a lot of
Hmm.
people a chance to start again. So I said, hey, this is my chance to start again. I believe this is interesting tech. The hype of the metaverse hadn't happened yet, but I still believe that 3D is something that will evolve. So when all these forces seem to be coming together, I said, this is an interesting space to be in. And I always
Yeah.
think that it's not you should never catch a wave because of market forces, because
Yeah.
you will still be, you'll still be weathered away by the market, because it will still be a big player who's going to come and challenge everything. It is still going to be acquisitions which are going to drive everything. You need to
Yeah.
feel that from inside. So because I was feeling those forces coming together in terms of where 3D is going to be, where content creation is going to
Hmm.
be, where power of democratic content creation is going to come. Truly
Hmm.
having the power of every consumer creating a Marvel or a Pixar experience in their pocket
Hmm.
was truly something that I could see happening with the way Unreal Engine and Unity were becoming, because
Hmm.
Unreal Engine and Unity, are the same engine that I can use on my MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, which a good Silicon Graphics, Silicon Valley, or a good, production studio doing high-end movies can use. So because the technology is the same, you can use the same technology to create a Marvel movie, and you can use the same technology to create a mobile app. So
Yeah.
you are kind of being able to emulate those experiences on mobile, even though it was low poly, even though it was retopologized, even though it was all the stuff that we know about. But
Uh,
for an end consumer, you're giving them the power to create a version of Alec in a Spider-Man suit doing a Spider-Man move in his drawing room. That's something interesting, right? So you created
yeah.
avatar of yourself wearing your superhero or the clothes that you want, and then doing things
Yeah.
and then sharing that on social. I just felt that that's a very interesting experience,
Yeah.
and someone's going to do it. So I just thought, let's just try and let's
Oh
just
yeah,
try and do it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if that was your calling, right? So that's where you get driven to.
Yeah, so it
No, but
has to come that way, because when you chase a trend, and when you chase something, you someone's always going to ask you, why are you doing this? And then you will
yeah,
say that, oh, because this is the right thing to do. And then someone's going to say, but and then you'll run out of answers at some point in time. But whereas if
yeah,
you know that this is coming from true passion, then you'll be able to drive it even on those days and months where things are not are not giving the kind of response you want. That, hey, I'm, if not me, I want to be somewhere in this vision. So
yeah.
I want to work towards this. So that's where I thought. And if it was that, if it so that everything, and this is part of the reason why I think about a lot of things in Web3, that when you drive everything beyond a point and you stress
Uh-huh.
test it beyond a point, it does get tired, and it does get a little fatigued. So I was getting a little fatigued in my earlier business. I was getting a little
Hmm.
fatigued, not getting the right kind of responses, because I was running that company more as a business and less as a startup. So I had fuel funded it myself. I had completely bootstrapped it, and there was only
Hmm.
an extent to which I could grow it, and it was
Yeah,
too tough for me with all that history and baggage to now say, hey, now I'm a startup, now I'm going to raise. So I had
yeah.
to. I sometimes you just feel that you get a sense of energy by pressing the reset button, right? So that
Hmm.
was my reset button. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, so so I see a lot of similarities. How things have grown up for me. But why fashion? Like we will talk about that a little later, because I you were doing those capturing 360-degree for for celebrities. So maybe movie making to me as a sounded like a natural progression. Okay, so you were not finding fulfillment as we call it in healthcare, but movies was something you were kind of associated with, and moving towards that was a little more easier. But why totally some fashion?
So I wanted it to be B2C, and I wanted it to be consumer facing, and I wanted it to be a tech that everyone plays with. And technically, you can use our tool for storytelling. So you can actually use it to
Yeah,
create a mini movie of yourself by making your
yeah.
avatar do interesting things. So we're
Mhm.
we're getting there. But my I was really wanting to do something where I could have my, even though I know that B2C requires high customer acquisition cost, and then we realize it's B2B2C, which where you have the power of B2C, and you have the power of B2B, where excuse me, where the brands have the reach, and we're empowering the brands with tech to reach out to B2C. So that's basically where we are right now. So we kind of give a pipeline to a apparel brand to create their metaverse activation. So whether the metaverse activation is photorealistic avatars with photorealistic clothing, to
Mhm.
put clothing onto their own avatars and create content on social media, or it could
Mhm.
be we're eventually going to have it on multiple avatar systems, which mean that many of these metaverses you can actually change the clothing on those avatars, and you can do whatever you can do within those virtual worlds or within those metaverses,
Mhm.
because the brand is present on us, and we're able to push the brand's clothing onto all these platforms which use these kind of avatars.
Mhm. Yeah. So so for all the ones who are listening and listening in on watching, go check out YOLOGram.com. That's the product Aditya is building, and we are talking about that right now. So Aditya, so okay, so you want to basically give people a second life, like a second representation. I'll not say second life, but a second representation of them and you want to give them the ability to change it. Like, you change clothes every morning, or going for a party, you have a different attire, or a marriage, a different attire. So for maybe different events, or you want to attend a red carpet, in a metaverse event, which probably I could be hosting, so, so what I understand is, so you want to do that, right? Let's tell it a little bit more, like what exactly you want to do with this product.
So my vision, and again it'll be tested by the market, but I don't know, but my vision is really that if within a few clicks, if a kid can just express themselves by
Mm-hmm.
doing a small 5 second 10-second kind of the equivalent of what an emoji was, where you're able to
Mm-hmm.
just do something. So I wake up in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, I'm making my thing, I'm probably still in bed or whatever, I put my I put my YOLOGram, which is my avatar, and wearing clothes, and maybe if it's summertime, I'm in a in a vest or something, and just yawning and something like that. So that's
Yeah.
basically what I want. The concept of expression in 3D, and you're able to just put you're able to put a yawning version of yourself on your bed or on your
Mm-hmm.
bedside table next to the alarm clock doing a yawning thing. So that's basically what, if you could do these quick kind of things in AR, or quick kind of things in different kind of virtual worlds. And these small little expressions are what build up the metaverse storytelling, because it's all
Mm-hmm.
captured in 3D. You have all the 3D content, and you see that all this material is
Mm-hmm.
available as your emotional capture that you've done. That's ideally my vision. I don't know how I'm going to get there, where you give people a small tool to create your mini me doing small things, small stories. So
Yeah.
immersive storytelling is what I think of it. And you're
Yeah.
building a library of these emotions, and you're building a library of these moments that you can quickly share. And in fact, because it's in 3D, I can actually send it to you, and you can actually place that yawning emotion of me on your bedside or whatever. And we've got that tool
Yeah.
also in the app, where two people can communicate, where I can place you in my living room, you can place me in your living room, and we can have a live call together. So that's really where I see the vision of this happening. And we're all powering this with branded content, because whatever clothing you're putting on, you can
Mm-hmm.
technically click on that avatar and go and buy that digital or physical clothing. So that is basically the vision of what I'm building. So I'm building a social expression tool, I'm building a 3D emotional tool, where you're
Mm-hmm.
sending greetings to each other, you're sending small little snippets of moments to each other. And this could either be storytelling, which is showing up on your Instagram stories or any kind
Mm-hmm.
of story out there, because it's captured in 2D. So you could either be capturing immersing yourself in different backgrounds and capturing that, or you could immerse yourself in AR and be capturing that. And these are small experiences, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, where people are just finding it interesting to send it to each other.
Wow. That's a fantastic vision, and I could sense that, the passion with, the way you were explaining it. I think you can use that, clip of this and put it, send it to VCs for funding. The passions, came out really, really well. No, it's fantastic, that what you're trying to achieve, and I think there's going to be a great market. And now with Meta and other platforms and Instagram and all, if, so how do I say it? Open to Web3, they're open talking about metaverses, they're talking about NFTs, enabling it on their platforms. So wider adoption, I particularly don't see is very far. Earlier people were envisioning it maybe year, 2 years down the line, maybe 5 years down the line. Now I see it's going to be much faster. You know, yeah, once the negativity around, the scams that we've had, and things we've, the industry has seen, once that dies down a little bit, and there's only one product, the way I see it is only one product which needs to come, which is actually solving, a big problem. And then, everybody is very positive about it.
Mhm.
And then suddenly, there's going to be all summer and no winters.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, we're all
right.
looking forward to that. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but then, it's keep building, man. It's all the best to you and the team, what you guys are building. And I think,
Thank you
you're
very
going
much.
to achieve what you're going to do, what you've set out for.
Yeah,
I can sense the passion. Cool.
thank you.
Yeah. So let's understand, like, say okay, so now you have this vision, and you have this, now you're very clear what you really want to build. Uh, so, but, if we try and understand, say from the point when you got say introduced to Web3 as a technology to now building a product. So can you explain a little journey? So say from say this is how I got introduced to Web3. For me, the NFTs I got introduced to when Gary Vee started talking about it, and then I did the drilling down and understood what is blockchain and stuff like that, and a bit of Bitcoin was there in the news. So what was it for you, and how has the
So
journey been?
so I've actually been very passionate about the other side of what people call so there's Web3, which is the whole P2P decentralized, what
Mm-hmm.
we call Web3, which is all about using Web3 tech, and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
metaverse at large, which is a combination of 3D tech with it. So I entered the metaverse from a 3D first, and for me it was a very very interesting journey because I didn't like. I know you have 20 years of experience in in AR, VR,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
3D, so things come very naturally to you. But when you're looking at it from a typical 2D, someone who's done forms and things like that, who's done kind of web forms and things like that, there is so much that has to be learned because I've not gone through a 3D learning curve. So I would do things like I made a piece of clothing, I made an avatar, now it should work. And then I would
Yeah.
go and tell my 3D designer, okay, now why the avatar is moving, but why is the jacket still in the air? Why is the jacket not moving? And he would explain that the avatar is moving because we have put bones on the avatar,
Bones in it.
and
Yeah.
and we have put we put in for animation to work for the rest of the mesh to move along with the bones. We've got a concept of skinning and how skinning
Skin.
works, where all the pixels on the skin move with representation to the bone, so some parts will move
Yeah.
closer, and now you have to repeat bones inside the clothes and you have to do skinning. I'm like, what are you talking? Why would clothes need bones? What are you talking about? And I thought that I really thought it was like how life is, that once you've created the avatar, you've created the clothing, the avatar can actually go in and wear the clothes. And
Yeah.
so these are the kind of interesting things, and I would
Wow.
I would look at a high poly mesh and say, can't you just right click and say low poly? I mean, how tough is that? And he's like,
I
there's something called retopology, and you have to manually do the whole mesh, and you have to redefine. So the way your eyes see something, the computer doesn't see it. So if you typically go and retopologize something without having some kind of AI in place, the object will completely look different because it'll make the mesh.
yeah.
You need to understand the way 3D was built to
Yeah,
understand the way 3D is evolving. So that was a very interesting journey for me, understanding all that. And I would lose my cool. I would be like, you guys are just trying to make a fool of me. You have no idea. And I would realize that when I would read about things, go on YouTube, I'd realize I'm the one who doesn't know. So that was a very
yeah.
interesting journey. And then when I got to, we thought that the digital market, the digital clothing market, is an
Uh-huh.
equally important market to address apart from physical clothing. So the
Uh-huh.
idea is that when you create a hologram of yourself, which is basically a mini me of yourself, you can put on clothing onto it. You can save your avatar, and you can save the clothing on your avatar, which you can purchase. You can actually buy the skins for your avatar. And
Mm-hmm.
then we were told that what if a game were to switch off an experience. Today they've used you, and they're happy using your avatar, they're happy using your wardrobe, but tomorrow they just want to switch it off. They can technically switch off everything that your consumers have done, so they can take content and finish it. So we said it's important to have every consumer being able to save their clothing onto their wallet, save their avatars onto their wallet, because this is truly something they have created. That's
Mm-hmm.
where we decided to look at Web3. So it wasn't like Web3 is out here, we have to force fit it. So that is where
Yeah.
we realize the value of Web3 comes in. And then of course, like everyone says, you can't switch off Bitcoin. So even if President Biden, Mr. Putin, Mr. Modi, all the most powerful people on the planet, they were to come together, you can't switch off Bitcoin. That's the power of P2P. So there are some things where they add value, some places where you know the value may not be a perfect fit. It's important to see what
Mm.
works and bring that together.
Yeah.
Like when talking about blockchain for say shareholders and things like that, it's important to have that. Perhaps not on P2P. I don't know, because sometimes as an organization you realize that some information has gone out there and it
Hmm.
is not correct information. So you can have a tracking of it, and you can have, but your shareholder may feel a sense of insecurity if there are too many changes on it. So maybe that could be on a DLT which is controlled by the organization, and but
Yeah.
it's an audited DLT where you have all the audits in place and everything. And in some cases, you can have things which are more consumer facing, like if you have something which is facing the consumer, maybe that can be on a typical P2P kind of Web3 infrastructure. So it's important to know what works, and eventually, we get forgiving. When we are on a YouTube a link and we get a little buffering or jitter, we're forgiving of it. But so these are the kind of things that one learns to accept with time. But whereas back in the days when there was Real Player and Windows Media Player, if you told everyone that the TV were to go to evolve in this way, it would be very difficult for a consumer to think about it, because there was way too much
Yeah.
jitter back. But
Yeah.
so similarly now, if you were to tell consumers that there will be certain movement on the blockchain which will look like edits or which will look like some kind of thing, but it has to be accepted because it's audited as well. That is
Hmm.
something that a consumer may be willing to accept a few years down the line. So it's important. What I was trying to get to is that there's the Web3 ethos, which is amazing, which is all
Yeah.
about if you have things which are open source, where you have things where there's sharing, there will only be
Hmm.
good coming out of it, and you have to do Web3, you have to use Web3 for good. So that has to be used no matter whether you're a Web3 company or a Web2 company. Read about the ethos of Web3, read about how people are using Web3 for good. So employ that in your company, whether you're Web1, Web2, whatever it is. As far as Web3 is concerned, there are some fundamental tenets of Web3 which may work for your organization, which may work for your company, which may not. So, you have to pick and choose. Don't go all in, because I know people who go all in and say, we have to do it this way, this is how it's done. Then you go into the rabbit hole. Now, what happens when you go into the rabbit hole is you go so deep that you've moved away from the consumer, you've moved away from what someone really wants, and you built this amazing thing which is which is solving a technical problem, which is whether it's in terms of staking or whatever. But then who's going to buy it, because half the people don't understand what you've done. So
Understand.
it's
Yeah.
important to have that in mind, that who you're building this for, what do they want, and what
Yeah.
are the good things in Web3 that you can pick up. So in our case, we wanted to make sure that when we heard kids talking, they've spent thousands of dollars on Fortnite skins and on Roblox skins, and I was surprised that
Yeah.
kids are spending thousands of dollars. And
Yeah.
kids would not go on vacation with their friends, save that money up, buy stuff for, because that was their world. That's where they were going and meeting people, and that was more
Yeah.
important to them than a 2-day vacation with their parents. So and
Absolutely.
that when they were told that they cannot take those investments out, and the only way you can take that investment out is you could do an off-chain transaction. So their version of an off-chain transaction is you level up a player, you share those credentials with somebody who will pay you in fiat. So I've
Uh,
worked on Roblox, I've got earned certain points, I've got certain things, I've got skins. I'm willing to sell you my credentials. You will take those
mhm.
credentials, you'll pay me in PayPal, or you'll pay me in with whatever means, and then these credentials are now yours. And you can edit the name and now make that name your name. But this is not really a something which the system is allowing, right? So we wanted to be able to let
Mhm.
people buy clothes, share clothes. If I customize a clothing, I can put it back on the marketplace, you can pick it up.
Yeah.
And some of these P2P kind of functionality should not be owned by the brand, it should not be owned by my company, it should just be there, and it cannot
Yeah.
be switched off. So that's where we felt the power of ownership, having something in your wallet, even though that clothing has been switched off by the brand. That
Mhm.
power of ownership, because when if I own this jacket, and if the brand says tomorrow that we are not going to make this jacket anymore, but it still lies in my cupboard, because I still own the jacket. So that's the power of ownership, which we felt that should lie in the hands of the consumers. And that is where we felt the power of Web3 truly comes in, and of course some NFT powers as well. So we said that NFT is not just a graphic; it's a graphic plus utility. So
Mm-hmm.
you can style yourself in various kinds of immersive environments and keep sharing it on a continuous lookbook, which is like a news feed. And if
Uh-huh.
you convert any one of those images into an NFT, it gives, if Aditya has made himself in this gray jacket and put himself behind with greens in the back or whatever, the minute Alec picks it up, he can put on the gray jacket onto himself instantaneously, and I get rewarded on the smart contract because I have added to the marketing of this jacket. Now that is the power. That's where we are bringing in the utility of the NFT. So you can just save it as a news feed, and there's no instant transfer of this knowledge of clothing from one user to another. But if you want that instant knowledge, where that person is picking it up and you're getting compensated for it, you mint it as an
Mm-hmm.
NFT and you store it on the newsfeed. So that's how we are thinking of NFTs bringing value and bringing that power of the smart contract into. Uh, that's where we feel
Yeah.
there's value of an NFT rather than just saying you resell this NFT. That we're thinking of it a little differently.
No, it's interesting, and what you presented is a fantastic use case because to a normal person, especially who's done a lot of 3D 2D work, it seems like, the kind of app that you want to build can be made without getting into a Web3 ecosystem in it. And why get to so much tech challenges? Because, putting that together, maybe the tokenomics of it, and, building a black blockchain, having the smart contract, written and then verified and tested, it's going to be a mammoth task because the use cases are many. But it in why you're building on you blockchain is a fantastic use case.
Yeah.
Ownership, and like giving, supporting the creators basically,
Mhm.
right? And that's what Web3 is all about.
Yeah.
Essentially, at the core, freedom of expression and like owning your material, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
our
fantastic.
vision is unlock the stylist in everyone. So we believe
Yeah,
everyone has
yeah,
a good eye, and you may
yeah,
think that you may not have a eye which is represented, which is which has high representation. So you may,
yeah,
I like gray tones and
yeah,
blue jeans, and I may think it's very boring. But when I
yeah,
style myself, and some lot of people start picking it up, I'll realize that you vibe with your tribe. I mean, I'm picking this up from what I heard
yeah,
somebody else.
yeah,
So you'll have other
yeah,
people who like gray colors with blue jeans and things like that. So
yeah,
you'll connect with your community based on your style. So you were really telling every consumer out there that a you're styling clothing and you're marketing the clothing with you as your face, so you become the brand ambassador. B, you are allowing people to connect with your tastes, so you kind of are unlocking that stylist in you. So
yeah,
that's really where our vision is. And today if you look at e-commerce, and if someone doesn't have a very good sense of self, how they feel about themselves, right? So when you're looking at
yeah,
e-commerce, you're typically seeing it on these beautiful models, you're seeing it on perfect body
yeah,
types, and these are
yeah,
people where their arms are popping out and they've got like muscle. It's kind of subliminal marketing, but they're basically saying this is how you should look, even though a lot of brands are
yeah,
now changing that.
yeah,
You kind of are unsure how it will look on you, whereas we're giving you the power to style it on yourself, so see it on yourself
yeah,
and really see. You've never bought maroon or you've never bought purple. Just see how purple looks on you. How
yeah,
you don't want to look like a fool going to a mall and trying out yellow pants with purple shirt, but you can do it with our app. You can do it privately, and if you think it's fun, share it
yeah.
publicly. You can share that,
Oh,
purple shirt and yellow pants doing that yawning
yeah,
thing on your
yeah,
bedside and send it to your best friend. So those are the
yeah,
kind of things that we feel that where we're bringing branded content, we're not force feeding it, we're bringing it for fun, and we're kind of we're also giving brands the analytics. We're anonymizing it and saying that what you thought the orange t-shirt was a bestseller in
yeah,
IRL, but guess what, people are they're putting their family photo on the orange t-shirt and they're sharing it, or people are
yeah,
changing the tone of orange to a different shade and then sharing it. So we're giving
yeah,
that feedback also to the brands.
yeah. No, it's fantastic, and I can only, while you was explaining it, I could see a lot of use cases within my house, within my family itself, of using the app. So yeah, so it's great, like for, I mean, we have a couple of more things, I wanted to cover a lot, we've had a fantastic discussion so far. But one quick question, like because you built this product ground up, right? So, what were the core challenges that you faced, while building or putting the team together? That's one of the core challenges, a lot of people are facing in Web3.
Yeah, so it's very very tough. So the first of all, Unity and Unreal, that I mean, it's a subsection of a subsection of a subsection. So you're first of all, people who understand Unity and Unreal are either from the VFX industry, because it's for them it's bread and butter, because you have to make
Yeah,
the movie will make money, and then the movie makers pay the VFX studios, and the VFX studios pay the VFX guys well.
design.
So they're core to that. They will pay anything to own Unity and have that. So for them it's very natural. But for software developers to understand Unity, you're really looking at a subsection of a subsection of a subsection of software developers. These guys are
Yeah,
far and few, and they're very expensive. Also, what happens in India is then when something is a wave, it just totally takes off. So there were two waves that happened. There was this whole AR/VR wave that happened, and there was COVID. And what COVID did was, I mean, I'm very happy for my tribe of developers, but suddenly all developers in India were exposed to international salaries overnight, because these are people who you just want the work done. They should have a
yeah,
good setup. They have good RTX processes. They've got a good setup. So they were getting jobs, maybe not very high paying job, maybe 50,000, $100,000 paying jobs from the US, directly sitting in India. Now suddenly the developer who was normally earning 10 lakhs is now getting an offer for 30 plus lakhs. And guess what? If you're being paid by US company, 50% of that is tax free. So you are competing suddenly with an unequal market. So that was a major challenge for us, trying to get
wow,
hold of AR/VR guys who are good, who've been in the space for a long time, and have it at somewhat reasonable cost. That was very challenging. And plus people were switching, because after all this, so first you had the AR/VR going into hype, then you had COVID, which was totally an equalizer in terms of any AR/VR developer anywhere in the world was instantly hireable. Then you had Mr. Zuckerberg coming out and saying, the metaverse is going to change everything. We as a $100 billion company, we're going all in. So these guys, if there was a cloud 10, they moved from cloud 9 to cloud 10, and they were like, you need us, we don't need you. So we are going to
yeah,
call this take. It was tough. It was those were some tough times to deal with. And
yeah,
we had a lot of churn, and we had churn like you cannot believe, unreasonable churn. You had people leaving on people who were negotiating salaries of 50% up within 15 days of joining. I mean, any business
wow.
person would say, don't get into these kind of relationships. That means you're entering the relationship from the wrong angle. So we had multiple of those experiences happen towards the mid of 21 and end of 21. So that was very very tough. Things have settled
Hmm.
down a bit. The craziness that Byju's had thrown into the ring has now settled down, because Byju's just hired everyone in ARVR. Everyone who had any knowledge of Unity ARVR, they were just handed out offer letters from Byju's, and starting from 30 lakhs plus. So anyone who had ARVR, certain years of experience, they were just they were just hoarded into Byju's. So that changed the industry in a big way. Uh, from a team cohesion point of view, a lot of these ARVR guys, they are like lone foxes. They are like typically like lone wolves. They work by themselves. They don't like to work in a team,
Yeah,
because you get something and you give an output. So typically a movie studio will tell you, this is the scene we want done. Please remove the dinosaur, put something else, or put flames coming out of the dinosaur's mouth and make it realistic, so that when the camera angle moves, it looks like a real dinosaur. So this requires immense concentration. You're doing it by yourself. You have to keep
yeah.
reviewing it again. So these are people who by design, who haven't worked in teams, who are used to being very by themselves. So breaking that and bringing them into a team kind of structure required a little bit of understanding their empathy, understanding team's empathy, understanding why the team is not able to break in and relate with this. So that was very interesting and challenging too.
Hmm.
And also the like I was sharing earlier, for me too, moving from a pure web to web based kind of model, where we were
Yeah,
giving you builds every night. And I it was that Mark Zuckerberg statement that he said, break things often and that's good, because when you break things, often you'll land up breaking things for good reason. So
Yeah.
our in my previous avatar of my previous company, we were churning
Mhm.
out a build every 2 days, because you would close the office when you created a build. You would just wait for the subversion SVN to check in the code, see it works, and
Mhm.
you make sure you close the office after you give out a build. And being the founder of the company, I would be up all night testing the build. So that I had to really change my thinking in Unity, because a lot of things come together in Unity when you pull them together. It's not just
Yeah.
the coding part. You have to make sure that
Yeah. Yeah.
the 3D part works well. You have to make sure the scene works well, the lighting, all of that works well. So you're actually producing a mini movie, and you're giving out a movie, like something
Yeah.
like the components of a mini movie. So that was challenging too for me, to change from moving away from my idols of Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, who were very very I would be pinpointing on things. I would be very very harsh on things. Now I've gone towards an empathy model, saying be empathetic about what this designer is going through, the challenges he's going through, because you are just seeing that flame. He is seeing it as volumetric fog. He's seeing it as light. We are seeing light from looking very differently. He's seeing it from a light source
Yeah.
point of view. So building that empathy required some thinking, because this is a new field to me. And
Yeah.
again, just bringing this team together from working like an orchestra, it required a lot of rethink. And all this is very tough when it's distributed. All this is
Yeah.
very tough when you don't have those water cooler moments, or those, what we have in India. We don't have water cooler moments in India. We have the panwala moments. Typically, people take
Yeah.
smoking breaks,
Yeah.
and people
Yeah.
typically network on the smoking breaks, whether you smoke or you don't. And your local panwala is the guy who's feeding you with what the other offices are doing. And you don't have those panwala moments anymore when you're on Zoom calls, because it's like agenda driven. You're on the call, you're off. So we're trying to build that culture of, let's have water cooler moments on. Let's all put our yes, yes. Smoking is totally injurious to health. I have never smoked a cigarette in my life. Please, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I no way am I advocating smoking, but it happens in offices.
Yeah.
So, but we don't have those panwala moments, or we don't have those water cooler moments on the Zoom calls. And it's important as a culture to build that in, where it's not feeling force fed. When we do a lot of these team building exercises, that okay, let's go into Zoom breakout rooms and let's solve this puzzle, let's do this. People are able to sniff it out. They're like, you're pushing your team cohesion on us. We don't want it. Whereas
Yeah.
when you let it come out more naturally, so what things we're doing is, speak when you're speaking about work, have a different tone. When you're not speaking about work, have a different tone, have a different dialect. I break out into Hindi, English on purpose, because I want them to know I am as human as you are. I'm not putting up a front, which I'm doing during the calls, because they have to
Yeah.
be structured. Because
Yeah.
if they're not structured, they'll go into any direction. So that was me during a call. This is me now as a human, connecting with you as a
Yeah.
human.
Wow.
Also with Zoom, the sense of belonging is missing. So it's not the paycheck is not the sense of belonging, right?
Yeah.
Does the person continue to be connected with you other than the deliverable of today and the Zoom
Yeah.
call? Does the
Yeah.
person feel the need to call you up and share something which could be a personal achievement, which has not got anything to do with work, right? Does the person feel the need to talk about their girlfriend with you? So these are things that we've all lost out when we've gone to work from home. And we need to figure out, how do we have that human to human connection? And that's something that we need to all build as we're doing
Wow.
this. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, so like while you were saying all those challenges, because I have, like I have had, done design teams with me, handled say about 10, 12 designers. So I can totally see, where you were coming from. You were coming from a business side of it. Me, who would be, leading the design team, and, somebody externally come and, do it, do it, do it. Like obviously, I was there as that filter. But here listening to that, I totally empathize with your designers, man. They must have had a good ride, while trying to explain to you how does design actually works.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's good, so see
Fun
what you
time.
I also portrayed was, how a good leader is. You learned, right? And you
Yeah.
try to,
I've learned a
adapt
lot. Yeah.
according to the according how this works. I mean, you were not wrong, they were not wrong. It's just about, how the cohesion works. So I think you beautifully said that as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I had tons of things. I think we are around top of the hour now, but I will have at least two, three. Like quick questions. So one is like in your interaction, we all talk about educating, and like we doing this podcast also as part of educating people on blockchain, what products are building, how you're impacting. So but in your interaction with different kind of people, like now that you're going for funding with investors and other people, do you think they're aware of web3, the technology? Do they see it as a viable option in the future?
So, so investors who are going with the wave, because now that we know the link between FTX and Alameda, and we know how the money flows and things like that, people who had a mandate to invest, and they had a mandate to invest in a technology, were really spraying and praying. That was back in 2021. But
Mm-hmm.
people who get it, they know that unless you're building value, don't talk to us
Mm-hmm.
about Web. So good, when I would often say, when I would often speak to good investors or good people or good mentors, often
Mm-hmm.
it's a good mentor who's hearing you, who says, you know what, I have access to good money, don't worry about the money. So when you speak to them, unless you're when you speak to them and you say, I'm bringing true value, I'm thinking about the consumer, I'm thinking about this, there you have a sense of connect. But when you talk too much in terms of what technology you're using, why you're using it, they know that technology will be replaced. There will be, whether it's going to be called web 4 or not, there is going to be an evolution that's going to come out and say that, okay, we have
Mm-hmm.
something better now. That's how,
Yeah,
the thought evolution is what changes, which is different from us and monkeys, right? Monkeys are
absolutely.
exactly the same every single generation. We're evolving every generation because we feel that, okay, that is status quo, let's go one level higher. So
Yeah,
there is going to be something which is going to be better than web 3, and
yeah.
definitely, and it may be just an evolution of web 3 as it is. But it's important to show why you're building something for the right reasons, and every investor and every mentor and every senior person in the industry is able to sense this, that, hey, I see true value for this. And a lot of people, I am surprised,
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about the goodness of web3. So where you're giving the power back to the consumer, because when you rise as a brand, and when you rise meteorologically to the height of, say, a
Mm-hmm.
big company like, publicly listed company in Nasdaq, there is so much of unequalness. There is, the amount of money that a brand has is so much more than what a consumer has. The power that the brand
Yeah.
has is so much. So if you're giving any kind of equalizing factors, where you're saying, I'm redefining the rules by saying I'm giving more power to the consumers, there are there are a lot of investors, and there are a lot of senior people out there saying, yes, I see value in this, because this is eventually what some brand is going to do.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to lead it or not, but some brand is going to eventually do this.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So that's a good view, like to understand from a like a investor point of view, and like what you need to be doing to go ahead and asking for money or pitching in front of VCs, or at different stages, is, does your product have a utility? Tech, non-tech, I don't think that's a challenge, right? It just technology just becomes a vehicle of doing
yeah,
things,
yeah,
right? It's just more about utility,
yeah.
and that's where people actually put in the money. So fantastic. And your thoughts, like your outlook for web3. I know you're building a product on web3, with blockchain, and so like your outlook in one word: positive, neutral, or negative, as of
I
today.
feel it. I feel it's very positive, and it'll blend in. It'll no longer be called Web3.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just be things we are using, and we will see that some parts, because it's immutable, will be there forever. Some parts, because peer to peer, will just be not being able to be switched off, and that's the power where you'll see that big corporates cannot do anything about that, because it's always on. So you'll have
Mm-hmm.
this power, coming into all flavors of tech, whether it's called
Mm-hmm.
Web3 or not, because it's not going to exist as an isolation. It's not going to exist as an island. So my
Mm-hmm.
one word is, yeah, positive for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And one or two critical pieces of advice for for people who's listening to us or others, primarily students, who are getting into web3.
Yeah, so a lot of people message me on LinkedIn about becoming a founder. Become a founder for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because it's fashionable. Because you know if you're not mentally in the right frame of mind, you can have 25 bad days and 5 good days in a month.
Yeah.
So, founders, they exude a certain kind of positivity because it comes in from inside. So make sure you're in the right frame of mind to become a founder. Otherwise, because you're putting up this front, you often don't share with family, you don't tell them how things are, and you can go down a very different mental rabbit hole if you kind of, and have a mentor, have a friend, someone who can share openly with, so that when things are not going good, they will tell you, boss, it's time to pull the plug, or boss, it's
Yeah.
time to pivot. You're too much in love with your idea. So have
Yeah.
someone, have an emotional compass, like how we have a, Google Maps telling us to recalibrate, come back online, come back to the main road or whatever.
Yeah.
Have an emotional compass with you, whether it's your partner, your wife, your spouse, your friend, your professor. Have someone bringing you back on track,
Mhm.
because we it's so easy to fall in love with your creation, right? We've
Yeah.
seen it in Hindu mythical stories, we've seen it with Greek mythical stories. You create something, you've created a world in there, and you're just living in there, and you're in love with that.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need to get out of that. I really thank all you listeners for giving the time and hearing me out, because I may have bounced all over the place. So thank you very much for that. And again, build for the right reasons, keep that end consumer in mind, um, have that empathy in mind, that what is it that he or she wants, because today consumers are shifting on a dime. They are not in love with you, they are in love with what this can do for me, right?
Yeah.
How can this tech enhance me, make me a better person, make me more connected? So if you're thinking of it from that point of view, you're going to be in the right frame of mind in terms of building in the right direction. If you're purely wanting to push something out there, it'll get pushed back. So that's
Yeah.
basically it is general product design. There's not so much as a founder, but make sure that you have enough user empathy, and that's the one thing I can take away from design thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Empathize. I've been a good component of that as well. Fantastic, Aditya. I think we are pretty much at the end now. So thank you so much again for coming in, joining, a weekend, like sharing this amazing amount of insights, with us. Fantastic, especially for somebody who builds ground up. There are different, nuggets of wisdom which come to the fore. And that's exactly what you've done today. So thank you so much for coming in. I had a pleasure talking to you. I hope you had that too.
Yeah, it was truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and
Yeah.
letting me express myself, letting me be free, and
Uh,
yeah, it was truly.
Pleasure.
And thank everyone for listening. I mean, you've probably
Yeah.
taken a lot of time to hear me out.
No, no, that's fine. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good weekend. See you next week. Here we end the broadcast.
Bye.